Teak in Solomon Islands grows quite well, and the rate of growth is quite rapid compared to other teak woodlots across the tropics.
In countries where it's natural range, such as Thailand, it can take 60 years for the rotation. So to get from planting to the point where you can harvest. Here, we can do it in 20 years. This tree is 9 years old. And, getting out my trusty diameter tape, we can see that this one at 9 years old has got a 39 centimetre diameter. So this will be able to grow for another 10 years, and in doing so it should double in size. The plantations are either owned by communities, by families or by individuals. How big they are, they vary a lot, from about 0.1 of a hectare up to 2.5 hectares. They're scattered throughout Solomon Islands in isolated communities. We originally came and we were working on silvicultural programs, how to grow your trees, how to make these really big trees. It was one of my coordinators who said, what about people who've already got trees? What do we do to help them? Because there's literally thousands of people, there's thousands of hectares of trees, which is when we came up with the idea to get market access for these people.
I'm Chris Vincent, the owner and director of South Pacific Timber. We've got Solomon Island teak in the background here, and this is part of the first consignment that I got in. Let me see if I can pull a piece out. And there's a piece of it which is dressed, and you can see the nice grain structure in it.
While you're looking at the teak, Craig and I did a couple of trips to talk to people who are timber importers, but Chris was a standout. Chris has worked with Solomon Islands, he knows about variability of sizing, and he was the perfect match.
I've been actively involved in the timber business in the Solomon Islands for well over 20 years and dealing with people directly up there. What is amazing about this teak is how young it is, as in either side of 20 years old, and the quality of it, that it's got everything happening for it to be a good commercial property. So the end applications for this would be, of course, furniture makers. Also, a lot of the lower grade product could be used for things like domestic fencing, feature walls and houses. The possibilities and the end uses are tremendous.
This is the scenario throughout Solomon Island. There are quite a lot of people planting wood where they are not able to process and get the timber out and sell it. So we come in as a research organization and try to work with them.
Logging companies arrive with all the big equipment and the bulldozers, but that's not what we want to do. We want to do it sympathetically, and we want to do it that doesn't cause environmental damage. So how do we get our machinery in? How do we get the timber out? You can't carry green logs out of the plantation, they're too heavy. So in that case, we have to cut them up to a size that we can manage. So we cut logs to 2.5 metres in length. And even then, it takes 6 people or more to move the log. If we can get the log arch in and use that, that's a lot better, but it still takes 4 people. And if conditions are difficult, if it's anything but flat land, it takes more. Then it was a case of what's the best sort of mill we can use, and we've tried 2 or 3 different ones before we actually hit on the one we've got at the moment. We bit the bullet and went for the bandsaw. It weighs 400 kilos. But we can take it apart, we can take the motor off and get it to the plantation. Yeah. All the timber that's cut has got to be carried on someone's shoulder down to the water's edge. I hate to use the phrase tyranny of distance, but every 100 metres you go, the more logistically challenging it becomes. Then before we put that green timber into a container, which is the only way to get it shipped overseas, we have to get some of the weight off it. There are many different types of kilns you can buy. We wanted something technologically appropriate to the area, so we basically designed this so it was really simple to make.
There's a fan over there powered by solar. The fan will blow the air, hot air around, and it will circulate. Now hopefully this will dry very quickly.
There are no easy ways to do any of this. If it was any other timber but teak, it wouldn't be worth it. All of the people that we've worked with could not sell their timber. Or if they could, there have been a few people who are being conned by logging companies who've stumbled across their plantations and said, oh look, we'll buy all your timber from you, and given them a pittance if they've given them anything. We come to an agreement with the grower, and the agreement is that we will come in and we will purchase X amount of sawn timber, a guaranteed price per cubic metre of sawn timber that leaves. And if there is any profit at the end of all of this, it goes back into the communities. It's not an exercise in buying timber, it's an exercise in proving market access.
It's always going to be a small market, but I feel that everyone now in the marketplace is looking for responsible alternatives to their timber. And I really can't see anything being more responsible than this. The funds are going straight back to the resource owners. The resource owners would be distributing that funds around the community. It actually makes that product more saleable.
It's a way of really assisting people. It pays for school fees, hospital fees. By selling timber, they can really do something. It's a substantial part of buying a new outboard motor or boat, and boats and outboard motors are the only viable form of transport in a country of 990 islands. So it's an influx of cash which is quite phenomenal into any community. It makes sense to have communities that have got a decent amount of timber, milling their own and taking responsibility for their own timber, and to run it on a purely commercial basis. I honestly see this as the start of a sustainable and profitable timber industry for Solomon Islands. That, I think, is the future.